Hello, welcome aboard. Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. This may well be your first visit to the channel because you've seen this come up in the title and you absolutely can't wait to get your hands on one. If that is the case, please hit the subscribe, hit the notifications bell. You'll get notified when I put a new video out and you can follow along and watch me build this one. So this, I'm starting another kit, I know, but this was kindly sent to me by Peter over at Airscale. And he has sent me lots and lots of stuff in the past for review and everything, and I've never really used any of it in a build properly. So I thought what I'd do, I've used some instrument panels and stuff, as you well know, but this is his first fully 3D printed kit. So I thought I would get this on the bench and give it a go. I've never built a 3D printed kit. I've only ever dealt with 3D printed accessories, as I'm sure most of you have. So it should be a lot of fun, and I'll kind of probably go quite slowly, not do many videos a week or whatever, but you know, it's got a fairly smallish part count, so it should be a fairly quickish build, and I think there's going to be a lot more to be sort of done in the painting than in the building side of things. So a lot of you will love that side of it, because I know a lot of you see the building as a means to get an article you can paint, whereas I like to I enjoy the building. It's not the finishing I enjoy so much, as most of you know. So that's the actual box. It's a sleeve type box. So there's the sleeve, and then inside the sleeve you get this beautiful box which has got a magnet in it holding it. I mean, you know, if you're going to get your partner something special for Christmas or something, I mean, you wouldn't mind putting it in this box, you know, with some, you know, say it's some lingerie or something, and wrapping it in tissue paper in this box. It's absolutely gorgeous, this box. And you can tell how good the packaging is. Listen to that. There is nothing moving around in there. So it is very, very well thought out from day one. But of course, with it being Peter, it will be very well thought out from day one, because he's one of the best modelers on the planet. So let's start by having a quick look at the instructions. So you can see we've got this lovely sort of scheme where it's looking like an old manual of some sort. So we can see in here we've got our two choices that we've got in the kit. Obviously there's other choices you could do if you want to use masks and stuff, make your own masks. I'm going to go for this one, L7021, which is the Day Fighter scheme, which is what's on the box front. Purely because it's very, very difficult to get a nice job on the black. And the other problem is with the Defiant, it is literally black, and there is nothing else. It's just black undercarriage bays, black wheels, black tires, black spinner, everything is black. So I would rather do the Day Fighter scheme and have a bit of colour going on there. So looking in the manual here, we've got, this is like our sprue call out. You can see here we have, rather than having a straight sort of aerial view of the sprues, we've got a sort of, you know, it's like clever little drawings. So you can see on here we've got everything sort of branched off into separate parts. So these are our cockpit parts. So this is box B. So this is what we're going to be using first of all. You can see the numbers here. Okay, the numbers, so you got 13 there. Is that bulkhead and that rear radio area. And as I said in my review, you can see there that that area there would probably normally be made up of like 10 or 12 parts. It's just one piece of resin. So you've got, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of resin basically building up the cockpit. I've got a couple of bits going in the sides. You know, there's hardly many parts at all. It's a very low part count compared to a plastic kit. So there we go, which, as I say, should make for a quick build. I would like to have seen more colour call-outs for painting. It does say in the back of the manual here about the cockpit and everything. It's basically a grey-green, which is, I mix my own. I've got RAF interior green here. I mix my own, which is sort of 50-50 XF76 and XF71. And you kind of get this lighter green colour, which I always find more appropriate for your models, because XF71, although people use it as interior green, it's actually a Japanese interior green. So bear that in mind. But we've got some pictures in here, and there is a Defiant at Cosford. So you'll see some walkarounds on that, and also my good friend Sully has sent me some photographs, so that's all good. But bear in mind that is a restored aircraft and it's a night fighter, so you know, be very, very careful. So we shall start off by having a look here. I've looked at the notes, and there's no notes about washing parts off or anything, but what he does suggest is a coat of Mr. Surfacer 1500 to get it primed. So here's a Mr. Surfacer 1500 grey. Okay, so we'll probably be using that. We'll thin it down, and you know, I don't know how new this jar is. It's very new, so it'll probably be like 50-50. People often ask me how much thinner to use with Mr. Surfacer. It's a question I can't answer, because the older Mr. Surfacer gets, the thicker it gets. So like Mr. Surfacer 1000 when it's new is very much the consistency of a Tamiya XF paint. Once it's had a few months sat on the shelf and been opened and closed a few times, especially in warmer weather, it thickens up a lot. So you straight away, you know, in March you might be thinning your 1000 50-50 for airbrushing, and then by the time June comes you might need 70% thinners. And I've talked about it before, and I've shown it before. You know, you have a jar of Mr. Surfacer on the side, you have it here, you have it open, especially on a warm day, 5 minutes and it's got a skin on it, so it thickens up very quickly. So I'd never talk about consistencies of Mr. Surfacer. So what we're going to do, we're going to find this block in our lovely box of parts. So here we go. I know this is also something that concerns a lot of you, getting these parts out of these boxes. So here we have, there's the box here. Okay. So as I said, there's nothing in the instructions about cleaning or anything, so I'm just going to use them straight out of the box. If we do have any problems, we can always wash it off with IPA. But we can see in here, we have this beautiful box of parts, and it's all protected by these uprights. So basically you could stand that upside down, it's not going to hurt anything. And while it's in the box, it can't move around. It's very, very well thought out. So there's a few different ways you could go about this. What you could do is come in with a knife, like so, and just identify the part you want to get out. So it's this one here. Now we've got this, you can see this support coming up from the base is coming up to here. Okay, so we're going to chop that one, just chop that through. Okay, that's that one cut through. I think it cut through, or did it skip off it? Yeah, it skipped off it. So it's quite a hard resin, this one. It's very good quality. So I'm cutting that one through, and this is what I always do, because when you've got these little supports sticking up here, and like there's some here as well onto these little levers, if we leave those till last, the whole part is hanging on those two little levers, and they may well get broken off. So what I like to do is cut those away first. So I'm going to cut in there. Okay, so I'm going into there and cutting that one. I'm going to go into there and cut that one. Alright, and then what I can do is cut the top of it away, and this bottom part should fall away. What you can do is just go in, don't be too scared of it. In the instructions it actually calls up, Peter has done a tutorial on doing this. So there we go, that's that. I've also got another support over there. There's two supports there actually, so I'm going to cut those off down in there. Of course, the other way you could do this is go around and cut the whole frame away from the outside. The only trouble then is when you put the parts back in your box, you've got no protection. So although you could just leave them out of the box, but we shall see. We've got these little parts on the corners down here. I'd rather have them protected than not. So I can go into there. I can come into here and cut that one off there. I can go into there and cut that one off there. There we go. You'll hear bits flicking across the room as we go. And what I'm doing is just cutting just above the surface and at the surface, and that way I can see when the parts have come off. Okay. Can I get in there? No, I can't get in there. So what I think I'll do is cut away this support here. So if we cut through the top, there we go, we can probably bend that down and snap it off. There we go. And now we can get in to these bits on the sides here. The other thing you can do, you see, is get a knife and just use the box as a leverage and just literally break the bottoms of these supports away. Just like so. You come in from this side You can see the resin is rather brittle. I want to cut this here so that it comes away. You can see all these bits coming off. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else which is attached to a small part. Yes, we've still got that one there. Did I cut it or didn't I? I have now. Just make sure that's free. Yes, it is. That one's cut away there. I'm just making sure that we don't have the part hanging on any small little knobs or anything. Obviously, once we've gone through most of this, we can then cut the whole frame away, which will make life a lot easier. Just basically going in piece by piece, slicing it away. Which will enable the part to pop out. Now I'm sure there are modelers out there who are kind of professional with 3D printing, and they'll probably be thinking I'm doing this all wrong. But there are more than one way to skin a cat, so just bear that in mind. So just take away those supports down there. They're gone. There's all sorts of bits and pieces lying around now. So we've basically got the whole front of this now disconnected from the base. Pass our knife through, make sure you don't go through the other side into your hand. There we go, you can see it's starting to move around. Just break away those bits there. There's just one or two bits holding it now. There you are. It should fall out. I'm not going to force it. There's one piece holding this in, I think. There we go. There was just one in the corner. And there we are. There's our bulkhead out, and then we've still got protection for all these other little parts. So there is our main bulkhead part. So what we've got to do now is come along and just carefully, just going to cut through these, staying away from the model, just to try and make sure that we don't, because if I cut this one off here and this one here is attached to something small, it may well push it off. So I'm just, I think what we're going to have to do is go in, like I said I wouldn't, and cut them at the base. Okay, and then we'll come across. Make sure when you're holding it you're not pressing on any little levers or anything. It sounds like I'm trying to tell you what to do. I'm not, I'm just showing you how I do it, which may not necessarily be the best way to do it. But I'm going to cut that one there. Okay, we've got some more here. Now, with some of these you can just snap them off, as you can see. They can just snap off. Now there's a support going into there, so I'm going to come in here, cut that one off. Okay, so that one there is going to come out of there. And then we've got a support there onto that one. We've got a support there. We go. What is actually holding that now? It's just one little piece take. See all this scrap is coming off? You can see there's that there. And then these supports here can come out. Just looking at the drawing of the parts, make sure that you're not removing any, what you think is a support, but it's actually a sort of control rod or something. And there's a support going onto there, like that. Okay, so that, I think, Note there's still a couple in here. Look, on these knobs there's a couple. There's one there, and there's one there. There we go. So that's going to require a little cleanup. But you get the idea. So we've actually removed that now from its box, and we've got all this support material left behind. Okay, so I'm going to get that cleaned up. I'm going to get the seat, the floor, and the TR1133 transmitter out of here, and then we'll be able to assemble or paint, prime, whatever, step one. Back in a second. Okay, so pushing on, I've got those three parts off now. So we've got the TR1133 there. We've got the actual bulkhead here, and we've got the floor there, 15. We're going to do some painting and add the decal, but next we've got to get the seat. And looking in the box, oh, one other thing, on this radio, it does go in. It's quite a fiddle to get it in, but it does go in, and it sits. You can see down in here there is a kind of platform there with these ledges coming in from the sides there. If you look here, you can see that we have the flat bottom and the pieces sticking out here. So they actually sit, they engage in there. I've also just noticed there's part of a large, looks like it's just started absolutely pouring down. It looks like there's part of a large support there. We're going to cut that away, make sure we get rid of that. Okay, I can do that off screen anyway. But also on the side here there is quite a large support going on to this. I don't know if you can make it out. There's a round part here, and there's quite a large support on there, and you might want to clear that away, but don't worry about it too much, because when it goes in, it's hidden behind this hydraulic ram here. This hydraulic ram will lower that upper shelf down, so that the turret can do 360. So if you want to have your turret, you know, visible and able to do 360, then you're going to have to cut these rods and move that down, do a bit of scratch building. But yeah, that's something to not worry about there. Again, make sure, like I missed it, make sure you get rid of all the little support areas, because they really will mess up the build for you. There we go. Job done. So that's going to go together all beautifully. That does wiggle in. I'll see if I can show you. Hang on. Where should we get some? Let's use these little tweezers here. It does go in, just to prove it. It does go in. You have to kind of get it in there and get the back end up, because these legs have to go over that ledge. But it does go in, I can assure you. The rain has just stopped by the sound of it. Okay, you can see here that this foot that I'm pointing out needs to fall down in front of that sort of little small bulkhead. So I'm going to try and lift it up. I'll tell you what, when I finally fit it, I'll show you then, because if I keep putting it in and taking it out, I'm going to scratch it. So I'll leave it like that for now. But anyway, that it does go in. I've had it in and out before. So there we are. When I actually took this out, I managed to break one of the rudder pedals off of its little support rod underneath. So I just tiny drop of super glue on the bottom of there. That's back on beautifully. And there we go. It's all fitting together lovely. The other thing I've noticed is on here, this bulkhead has two little connecting tabs there, and this area here you can see is flat. It goes into the floor, and those two little connecting tabs go into those two little holes, but here we have a raised step in the middle. There is a rib there. So what I'm going to do, because it's all invisible I think on the finished model, I'm just going to, in fact what I'll do is put it on like so. You can see that when it goes on, it fits beautifully. Those tabs go in the holes, but you can see that the back end is raised up, and I think that step's not supposed to be there. So what I'm going to do is just put a mark on there like so, and now we can see where we need to remove that. Now if it turns out that we don't need it removed, I will let you know, but I'm sure it's not supposed to be there. I'm sure Peter would have designed it to be sitting flat in there. Okay, so that should let it go down flat now. Let's get those feet into the holes. There we go, into the holes. And there we go, it'll go down flat now. Flat onto the floor. Okay, it still needs a tiny bit more off, but no problem. So there we are. Okay, so you can see we've got an amazing assembly there with a lot of detail, and that's only 3 parts. So low part count means a fairly quickish build. So what we've got to do now is look at the seat, and the seat is in the ABS box, which is here. And as you can see, the seat is buried way down in there. Now, what we need to do first of all is familiarise ourselves with the parts. This seat has got a hell of a lot of supports. You can see in here it is a complete and utter maze of supports. And I don't know if it's because it's the lighter grey plastic or what, but it's very difficult to see what we're doing. So we're going to have to be very, very careful. And the first thing I'm going to do, what you might think I want to do is cut the bottom of these frames off and just remove the protective box. But then the rest of the parts have no protection for the rest of the build. So what I want to do is remove this support here and this support here, and that should give me access into that seat. But we've got to be really careful because right here next to it is the throttle quadrant, and it's very, very fragile. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is remove this support here. So I'm going to grab a razor saw, and using the fine side, I'm going to cut along here. As I say, Peter's got a video, it's in the instructions, you can go and see the video about how to remove these parts. But it doesn't really apply very much to this initially because he's doing a small part with a small protection on it. Peter is fantastic at protecting his parts. Now up here, I'm just going to use these old cutters. These are old Tamiya cutters. I'm going to cut it, and you can see it kind of fractures. Now we can see, the first thing I want to do is test how strong is this. And as we can see, it is very strong indeed. It's got a slight deformation to it, but you can see it's not breaking. So how far can we go before it snaps? Blimey. Look at that. I never thought I'd see 3D printed material out like that. It snapped. When I touched the ends together, it snapped. So there you go. So extremely strong. And you can see that has vastly improved the access to that seat. So now what I can do is come along with my blade. I'm going to use the coarse one here because I've got more material to get through. I've already looked at this. The first thing I want to do is look at the back and make sure you're not going to cut into anything. And that's why I'm keeping the saw flush with the base. Because that way, if it does hit anything, it's only going to be hitting a support. It's not going to be hitting a part. I think we're nearly through. There we are. And then we can cut the top one as well. In fact, what we'll do is... Oh, that shattered through there, look. That shattered. That's weird. Okay, so there we are. So we can cut through here. You can see how brittle it is. It just snapped off as soon as I cut it. So there we go. Right. I will leave that for now. I'm going to go and do something else, and then I'll come back and we'll make a start on cutting that out. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is looking at this part. You can see it's very, as I said just now, it's very difficult to see exactly what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is look in the instructions and familiarise myself with the part. Now we can see that we've got a control column sticking up out of the front. So as I've said before, we're going to remove the supports for that first, because what we don't want to do is go cutting all this away and have the whole thing hanging on that control column. that's asking for trouble. You can see what I'm talking about here. That control column is in there. So what we'll do, we will come along with our cutters, and as Peter said, we'll have them upside down, and we'll just basically cut away that support. And then there's another support below it. Okay, and I'm going to come to make sure that your cutters are not going too deep and they cut the actual column itself. So there we are. So that's that removed. Okay, I've left some of the support on the hand part of the control column, and that can be cleaned up afterwards. Okay, so that's our control column. You can see is now free and will not be broken off by other parts. So we can see that on the back here we've got rear supports. So let me grab something to point with. We've got rear supports that are coming out here, and they are here. You can see they are coming out, and they're going to sit over this cross member here on the bulkhead. And then we've got additional supports at the bottom hanging out, and like a little 45 degree or a little 90 degree angle, and they've got two supports going up, and they are very deeply buried. You can just make them out. I don't know if you can see them. I can hardly see them myself, but they are very deeply buried down in there. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm just looking here. That looks quite flimsy there, so I'm going to take the connector away from there and then cut the connector away from there. And then I'm going to take it away from here using just the tips, not going in. If you go in deep, you're likely to catch something in the background and break it. So I'm just going to make sure I'm doing this properly. Okay, so that support has been cut through. So I can cut that away. That one has been cut through, so I can cut that away. So I'm going to go right down to the base and cut these away at the base if I can. Now we can see in behind there we have that framework with that piece of angle at the bottom. So we want to get rid of that support there as well. Okay, we can just grab it with the nips and pull it. But you can see we've got to be very, very careful in here. That support was right next to that support there, which is actually part of the seat. So when you get yours, be extremely careful. You can also see here that this lever on the side is held there. I'm going to cut this support off at the bottom, and hopefully that will break away. Yeah, there we go. Because I didn't know what was the kit. It's hard to see what is actually the kit and what is support. That support there is doing nothing. We've got quite a thick one there. We've got quite a thick one there, so I'm going to just cut that away at its top end and then remove the rest of it here, just like so. And we can see a seat starting to emerge in front of our very eyes. So that support there is attached. We've got a little block on the side of the seat there, which is sticking out. I'm not sure what support and what is actually the block. So I'm going to cut it here. Got some very thick supports here, guys. Okay, I'll cut that off there, and maybe the whole lot will pop out. I'm sure this is not very interesting for you to watch at the moment, but what you can see what I'm doing is trying to pick out the details and leaving the main seat supported, but we're going to have to try and go in from the back in a minute. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to go away under my magnifier and deal with this bit here, because this bit here I can't see where the seat ends and the support starts, so I'm just going to make sure I get it right. Back in a sec. Okay, so as you can see, I've dug in quite deep here, and what it is, if you look on the instructions, you can see that on the side of the seat here there is like a little support that's just sticking out of the bottom there. and there it is on the seat there, but it's got a really thick, it's got like 3 or 4 connectors, supports all in the same place, so it makes this one sort of, I don't know, 2mm square block of connectors, of supports. So what I'm doing is leaving that block on there, and then we'll shave that off after we've got the seat out, because it's connected to a tiny little lever that's moving, that's going in here, up there. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to put you through watching me do all of this, but I'll show you, I think, stage by stage, bit by bit. It's going to take quite a while to get this out of here, because we've obviously got to be careful not to break anything. So I'm just going to, I think I'll come in here and work on that little connector there. Cut that one away. There we go, that's that one gone. But it's very difficult. It's got the antenna up the side here. We don't want to go damaging them. I think what's probably happened is Peter's made the prototype of the kit and then realised that, you know, parts of the seat were a bit flimsy, the guns were a bit flimsy, so he's done this ABS block, and it's yeah, it's very, very fiddly. So but that's what modelling is all about. It's great fun if it's a bit fiddly. It's not when it's got a million parts which you have to glue on, but doing this is, of course, it's new to me as well. So I'll be back in a minute. I've also just noticed we got some, it's a bit sticky there, so there's some uncured resin or some of the release agent stuff, whatever, on there. Won't be a minute, hang on. Okay, so as I said, going through the stages, that bit of sticky there, I just wiped it off with some IPA. The phone went, it was moss on the phone. So basically, yeah, we've got bits and pieces falling out. So you can see I've dug into that side as I showed you, and now I've actually started digging into the back, and we've actually managed to find, if I use these tweezers as pointers, there's that support. You can see we've got the angle bracket down here on this side. Okay, so we've got those 2 rods coming from the seat down to that angle bracket, and then we've got the same here. So make sure you don't cut through those. Okay, so I've cut through the bottom supports, and I've had to dig some of this away to get in there. Now I was going to use, you can see I've got these little tiny scissors, and they're great for getting in these really tight places, but the trouble is with scissors, they have like a slicing action rather than a chopping action. So they tend to sort of, as they cut, whereas with these, I might be able to show you on this cocktail stick, when I cut with these, I cut and it cuts straight through and it doesn't flex. But if I try and cut that with these, I'll have to use the thinner end, I think, you can see it's got the tendency to push itself off like that, but also while it cuts, it's wanting to tip it over. Okay, so I wouldn't advise using those. They're good for little bits of rigging and stuff, but they're not very good for stuff like this. Now that's why I'm not using the god hands, because the god hands are so fat. You can see from the tip of the blade, you can see there how much fatter they are. They're no good for this whatsoever. Probably damage the blades as well, because it's quite hard, this ABS material. So these are old Tamiya. I wouldn't use a nice pair. These are old Tamiya cutters, and these can just shear it off. So as I say, we sort of come in and just remove bits and pieces. Just take your time and go really steady, and you know, work in from the sides. Be careful of these throttle levers on here. You can see you've got these tiny little throttle levers down here that are just asking to be broken off. So I'm just going to use my tweezers here to pull that one over, break it off. Did I remove these? Did I remove that one? There we are. Just break these away and make room for ourselves. And get in there somehow without damaging those throttle levers is going to be very tricky indeed, but I may be able to, because I've cut through there. There we go. You can often just break these off. If you cut them halfway down, you can often just break them off. You know, you'll see this one here. If I just cut, you know, I've just cut through that one there, so I should be able to just pull it and it will break off. You see, it's broken off from the part, but it hasn't broken off from the other leg that's supporting it. So, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat in this game, and This cat is being skinned a million different ways. Sorry about the terminology, but you know what I mean. We've got support there, we'll get that one out of the way. And as you can see, we're slowly going through and making room. It's not normally this difficult, guys. This is just mega complex, with lots of little bits sticking out that are just asking to be cut off, and you've got to be so careful. I think the fact that it's the ABS light grey doesn't help either, and also we get this situation that we've got here where we've got two supports that are sort of melded in together, and they become one thick support, which can be quite difficult to cut. As you can see, I need to make more room here now, so I need to cut that one off, cut that one off, cut that one off. And now I can get into here and cut that one off. And then I should be able to come in with the tweezers and break it away. There we are. So you can see bit by bit, millimetre by millimetre, we're getting through. Okay, we've got to be careful not to damage these antennae. We've got to be careful not to damage that throttle. Throttle assembly, should I say, not throttle, in my Bristolian accent. Okay, so I'll keep going and I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, so now you can see the seat is actually removed. So we've got those supports still there and everything, and we've got all these little bits and pieces to get rid of. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and zoom you in a bit so you can see a bit better. And then what we'll do is, with the flat side of the cutters, come in and just remove any little raised lumps and bumps. I may need to go to the magnifier for this because it's difficult sometimes to see. I think it's the colour of this resin. It's difficult to see where the part starts and the gate ends. Like that there, I'm going to have to do under a magnifier because I can't see. And the thing is, you only get one chance when you start slicing it about. See, now I almost went and cut that off there then. Take the lump away from there. Little lump on the bottom of there. There's a little lump on there that's just brushed away. We're going to get in here. Cut that one. Again, you see we've got these very thick supports that are really close into the surface, so it's difficult to get into them. And I do worry about cutting the big ones through because they tend to sort of break rather than cut. Let's try and cut up through there. That's it, get rid of that, and then we could come in from here then. I'm going to go into the magnifier, guys, because I don't know what's the part and what's not here. So I'll be back in a second when I've got it all cleaned up. Okay, so there we are, all trimmed up. The bottom of the seat isn't really that important because you're never going to see it. So just on the back here, we've got these little remnants of these little supports. Just coming in to take those away. There we go. There's some little bits and pieces on the backs of those bits there. Let's just sand those away. And then on these little angled pieces at the bottom, we need to support these brackets. We're just going to sand over them. And there we are. So that is going to sit. So let's take this bulkhead off of here. that seat is going to sit with these two claws going over that bracket, and these little brackets at the bottom sitting over the other bracket. So get that roughly central. Just dry fit it. Yeah, that still needs some more. So obviously, yes, I can see it now. It's got a sprue gate in it. I'm going to grab a very small file. I called it a sprue gate. It's a support, I should have called it. Just get in between and just clean that out. And then sand away the top part of it. Maybe if we can, we'll get in and put a little chamfer on there, make it easier to slide on. So we'll try that again. There's one on. Just slide it over a tad. There's two on. Obviously you want to make sure it's really well cleaned up because you don't want to be forcing anything, because that's when you start to break stuff. And there we go. There's our seat. Roughly fitted. It hasn't gone all the way back because I haven't cleaned that out properly. I'm just going to take some more meat off of there. Remember, it's going to be glued, so it doesn't matter if it's not a sliding snap fit. It just needs to slide over. There we go, that's better. And then those bottom brackets will go over that. Come on. It's because the camera's on, it's just absolutely playing up and being a complete and utter swine. As soon as I turn the camera off, it'll go together lovely. There we go. It still needs some clean up to get it to go back nice and square. But it's not going right in on this side, it needs filing out. Let me get that filed out and then I'll come back and we'll look how it looks. And there we are, guys. There's our cockpit. Complete in 4 parts. Absolutely amazing. So there we are, we've got our ABS seat. So now that's good, ready for primer and a coat of green paint. So and then we've got a decal to go on there as well. But you can see the detail. When I get the primer on there, you'll be absolutely amazed. So I need to do some more Fiddly and get this seat to go back on that bracket nicer. But I don't understand why it won't go back better than it does. There we go. It is what it is. It's square and everything, so I don't know what's going on. But there we are. Absolutely gorgeous detail. We'll get some nice grey primer, a nice really thin coat of grey primer. That will make any little bits and pieces we've left sticking out stand out. And then we can get those sanded off and move on from there. So I will see you back in a bit. And there we go, primered. And as I always say in my videos, grey primer will show up everything. I've been spraying something black as well, that's my hands black. But you can see there the grey primer has really made that detail pop. It's not until you put the grey primer on that you can really see. Wait until you see this seat. Look at this. It's exquisite. It's absolutely gorgeous. Look at that control column. The little toggle thing in the middle is absolutely beautiful. And then you can see the detail down in the seat. The rivets and everything. Also the bits of dust that are in there that I've left in there. And also it's not until you put primer on that you can see where you've gone wrong. You can see on the back here we've still got some nipples left behind from the supports. But you can see here where I was being very careful to remove that support. There's that little lever there attached to that lever there. I think of no other word than lever for it all. And then here you can see the bulkhead is absolutely gorgeous. We've got these levers on the side here. And all the detail around the sides. It's stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. With the detail in there in the back where the radio is going to go. It's absolutely gorgeous. And then finally here we've got the little transmitter. If you look closely on the top you'll see some layer lines. Not to worry because you're not really going to see them, and once it's black you won't see them anyway. There we go. Absolutely beautiful. And as I say, if you remember this bit here where you can see where that great big support was, it's focusing on my bloody finger rather than the part. You can see here that where that's hidden behind that hydraulic ram, so that's all good. So there we are. So I'm going to call that a day for this one. So we've got the cockpit parts off. I really did want to cover in this video, about removing, because a lot of people ask me, and a lot of people are scared of taking 3D printed parts off the bases. These I've never done many, but this seat, without a doubt, was the most difficult I've ever done. If you've got the space, I would thoroughly recommend taking all those frames off. Remove this ABS box here, remove the whole frame, and then store it somewhere. Don't put it back in the box and let parts lay on top of it, because those gun barrels will get broken, for instance, and those throttles down there are very, very fragile. So that would be my recommendation. Or what you might decide to do is get the kit and take all the parts off and store them away in boxes before you even start building the model. So that's what you might decide to do, rather than leaving them in their boxes. But you can see here I've managed to keep the whole box intact and take all those parts out, so it's still really well protected. Okay, so there we are for part one of this beauty. We've got decals and our seat belts there. And yeah, so this has been part one of the Airscale 1/32 scale Defiant 1. So not sure when part two will be, but I will get stuck in. Tell you what, Peter, we need one of those in 1/32 scale. That's something Peter could actually go into, isn't it? He could start doing 1/32 scale ground equipment. Nobody does it. Nobody. So that'd be good, wouldn't it? Right, I'll see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.